Have you ever been hungry and somebody came along and gave you some food and you know how much you appreciate that? Well, this entire family would have died of hunger if it had not been for their brother Jose, the brother and son. Now, Jose had no reason to help them. They had thrown him in a cistern. They were going to leave him there to die. But then they thought, well, why not make some money out of him? So they sold him to the Ishmaelites, and the Ishmaelites took him into Egypt. And ups and downs in Egypt. Finally, because he could interpret the dreams of the Pharaoh took him under his wing, and Joseph became the number 2 guy in all of Egypt. And they're going to have food. And in Canaan, they're not going to have food. So in Canaan, they decide they're going to come down and get food, but they don't know they're getting it from Jacob or from Joseph, from their brother. In fact, they think he's probably dead. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. Now, finally, Joseph tells them who he is. They go back and tell their daddy, oh, he's just like he's come alive after being dead. Hadn't seen his son for 30 years, they said. And so he's come now. He is in Egypt. In the last chapter, they met and they hugged and cried said a long time, said on their shoulders. And that means when you cry on somebody's shoulders, it's more than just crying. It's kind of like just boo-hooing real hard. Well, Jacob and his family, they get there. And what are they going to get? They're going to get the best land in Egypt, in an area called Goshen. Now, you might have seen, there's a Goshen, Indiana. There are some of our towns get named after places that were in the Bible, and some people. Well, Jacob got to see his son now. That's his last thing on his bucket list. He said he's going to be ready to die, and he passes away right here at the end of this chapter. Maybe I shouldn't tell you that. We could build up to that, but he's going to be passed away, and God tells him that Joseph is going to close your eyes, which means he's going to die there, and Joseph's going to be with him. And he said, I will bring you back, which means he's going to get taken back and be buried in Canaan, where the promised land is, where his family is buried. Well, that brings us up to chapter 47. 47 is going to be interesting. So let's go now. Open your Bibles to chapter 47 in Genesis. You got it? Okay, here we go. We're going to look at verse 1. They settle in Goshen. The family's there. Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and my brothers have come from the land of Canaan with their flocks and herds and everything else they own, and they are now in the region of Goshen. He then presented to Pharaoh 5 of his brothers, whom he had selected from the full number. When Pharaoh asked them, what is your occupation? They answered, now this is not going to be good. They answered, we, your servants, like our ancestors, are shepherds. Now this is the source from the south, because remember in the north, in the last chapter, in chapter 46, verse 34, they said, don't tell them you're shepherds, because the Egyptians don't like shepherds. So now they're telling them that they are shepherds, and there's no contradiction. It's 2 different writers that are writing this. Verse 4. We have come, they continued, in order to sojourn in this land. Sojourn means they're a wayfarer, and it also refers to they are wayfarers just passing through this life to the next. It's more than just passing into this country, into this land. They're going to be passing from that land, some back to Canaan, but finally they're going to be in their homeland, which is heaven. Verse 3 says, when Pharaoh asked them, what is your occupation? They answered, we are your servants, like our ancestors, as shepherds. Verse 4 again. We have come, they continued, in order to sojourn in this land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, because the famine has been severe in the land of Canaan. There wasn't even enough grass for the cattle, let alone for the people to get food. So now, please let us, your servants, settle in the region of Goshen. Now, they've already been decided that they were going to settle in the region of Goshen, but now they're asking if they can. Then we come to, Pharaoh said to Joseph, now that your father and your brothers have come to you, the land of Egypt is at your disposal. Settle your father and your brothers in the pick of the land. They've already got the pick of the land. They've already settled in Goshen. Let them settle in the region of Goshen. You see how the writer goes in circles. Sometimes, like when we're talking, we forget what we said here and we say it over. And if you know of capable men among them, put them in charge of my livestock. He wants to give everything to Joseph's family because Joseph's family has been so good, so helpful for Pharaoh with his dreams and knowing how to take care of the food. Verse 7, then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. This sounds kind of odd. Jacob is of the Hebrews. The Egyptians have different gods, but this writer wants the people to know that Jacob, the Hebrew, is blessing the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh is the top guy. I wonder what Pharaoh was thinking. Why are you blessing me? I don't even know your God. I don't want to know your God, probably. Verse 8, then Pharaoh asked Jacob, how many years have you lived? Isn't that a strange question? But it's got to have something to keep the story going. How many years have you lived? And Joseph replied, 3 years I have lived as a wayfarer, amount to 130. Few and hard have been these years of my life. Few, 130 years old he's been living. And these few years, well, the last 30, they've been hard because he's thought his favorite son was dead. And they do not compare with the years that my ancestors lived as wayfarers. So whenever we have these years in there, this comes from the priestly source. This is the priest when we tell they've lived for so long. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and withdrew from his presence. Joseph settled his father and brothers and gave them a holding in Egypt on the pick of the land. The pick of the land. We already know what it is. The region of Ramses. Ramses was a ruler earlier in Egypt, as Pharaoh had ordered. And Joseph provided food for his father and brothers and his father's whole household down to the youngest. So we got everything now for Joseph's family. We're going to look now at the family that's not Joseph's, but the ones in Egypt. So he's got kind with his family, but look what he's going to do to these Egyptians. Verse 13 says, since there was no food in the land because of the extreme severity of the famine, we already know that, and the lands of Egypt and Canaan were languishing from hunger, Joseph gathered in as payment for the grain that they were buying all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan, and he put it in the Pharaoh's house. So he has sold this grain to the people down there. He's given this land to his family and all the food, but the people that live there, they have spent all of their money. They've got no more money just to buy food. Verse 15, when all the money in Egypt and Canaan, even got all the money that was in Canaan, was spent, all the Egyptians came to Joseph pleading, give us food. Why should we perish in front of you? For our money is gone. They've got out of money and out of food. It's going to get worse. Verse 16, give me your livestock if your money is gone, replied Joseph. I will give you food in return for your livestock. He's taking away from them their livelihood, taking their livestock. He's got all their money. Now he's taking their livestock. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for their horses, their flocks of sheep, and herds of cattle, and their donkeys, and thus he supplied them with food in exchange for all their livestock in that year. So now they've got no money, they've got no livestock, and they're still going to get hungry. Verse 18, that year ended, and they came to him in the next one and said, we cannot hide from my lord that with our money spent and our livestock gone, made over to my lord, given it over to my lord, there is nothing left to put at my lord's disposal except our bodies and our land. They're going to have. Now, Joseph, you think, is a good guy, but this right here is certainly, doesn't sound like somebody that wants to support welfare, does it? Verse 19. Why should we and our land perish? How is your land going to perish? Why should we and our land perish before your very eyes? Take us and our land in exchange for food, and we will become Pharaoh's slaves. First it was the money, then it was their cattle, now they're giving their entire bodies. And our land as property. Give our land as property. Only give us seed, that we may survive and not perish, and that our land may not turn into a waste. If he's going to give them the land, if they give him the land, how are they going to plant the seed? Where are they going to plant it? Verse 20. So Joseph acquired all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. Each of the Egyptians sold his field, since the famine weighed heavily upon them. Thus the land passed over to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh's got everything now. And the people were reduced to slavery. Now, they should know something about this in the future, because they're going to become slaves themselves. From one end of Egypt's territory to the other, they were slaves. Verse 22. Only the priest's lands Joseph did not acquire. Now, usually the priests didn't get a land of their own, but there would be a certain spot of land that the priests could all go to be able to live, in case they didn't have their jobs didn't work out for them. They could come to that one little spot of one place of land. So the Pharaoh didn't take their lands. They did not acquire them, since the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived off the allowance Pharaoh had granted them. They did not have to sell their land. Verse 23. Joseph told the people, now that I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh, here is the seed for sowing the land. But, very next verse says, but when the harvest is in, you must give a fifth of it to the Pharaoh, while you keep 4/5 as seed of your fields, and as food for yourselves and your households, and as food for your children. I hope that the famine is about to end, because planting those seeds is not going to do good if it's not. They say, you have saved our lives. Oh, they're so thankful. You have saved our lives, they answered. We have found favor with my Lord, and now we will be Pharaoh's slaves. Isn't that nice? We get to be your slaves. Thus Joseph made a statute for the land of Egypt, which is still in force, that 1/5 of the produce should go to Pharaoh, and only the land of the priests did not pass over to Pharaoh. Now we're going to go to verse 21. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the region of Goshen. And we're going to come now to a part with the priest because we're going to be having some more dates and ages again. There they acquired holdings, were fertile, and multiplied greatly. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. That means it's the priest. For 17 years. The span of his life came to 147 years. So he lived to be 147 years. And this, when we see these numbers, that's the priest. When the time approached for Israel to die, Israel is the same guy as Jacob, remember. God changed Jacob's name to Israel because he was going to have all of the land, which became Israel. And 10 of his sons and 2 grandsons become the chieftains of the 12 tribes. 10 sons and 2 grandsons. We'll go back to that. Verse 29. When the time approached for Israel to die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, now, isn't that something? He's going to die. He only calls one son. Joseph is his favorite. Joseph and Benjamin, because they are the only 2 with his favorite wife, Rachel. It's almost like the ones with Leah and the ones with Bilhah and Silpah, the maidservants. It's almost like they're not his children. They're not with his favorite wife anyway, and they're not his favorite children. His favorite children are Benjamin and Joseph. And he says this, if it pleases you, put your hand under my thigh. I don't know if you remember this because it was way back there. But whenever they made a pact, they would put their hand under their thigh. I think that was Isaac that told Jacob to do that. Now Jacob is telling Joseph to do this. Put your hand under my thigh. That's like we're saying, cross my heart and hope to die. Only this is more serious. Put your hand under my thigh as a sign of your enduring fidelity to me, and do not bury me in Egypt. And God says he's not going to be buried in Egypt. He says in the last chapter, 46, it says, Joseph will close your eyes, and then I will bring you back. Verse 30. When I lie down with my ancestors, now his ancestors, who's the ancestor of Jacob? It's Isaac was his daddy, and Abraham was his grandpa. When I lie down with my ancestors, take me out of Egypt. I don't want to be buried here. And bury me in their burial place, which is called the promised land for the promised people. I'll do as you say, he replied. Verse 31. But his father demanded, swear it to me. So Joseph swore to him, and then Israel bowed at the head of the bed. He bowed down. That means Jacob is gone. So who else have we gone through now? We've started out with Adam. Then we went through Noah. Then we went through Abraham. Then we went through Isaac. Now we have finished with Jacob. And we've just got 4 more chapters, and we're going to be finished with Genesis. And in that time, we're going to be losing Joseph pretty soon. Okay? So we've got the father with his son that has been gone for 30 years. They're all settling there in Egypt. And Egypt is not the promised land. So they're going to have to spend a lot of time. And whenever this Pharaoh dies, and the next one is not so happy, and he doesn't care about Joseph. Joseph's passed on anyway. He makes these Israelites slaves for 400 years before a guy named Moses comes along. And he's going to be coming along in about 5 more chapters. Peace be with you, and thanks for watching.